Inception of the librarian was formed by Thomas Jefferson in 1902. It was a lifetime appointment. It was a lifetime appointment until President Obama changed it in 2015 and made the librarian where it was at the service and at the will of the president. There was no objection by this side at that time when that was taken care of, so that it was well within the president's authority to be able to let go the librarian. There is no separation of powers because that appointment for the librarian has always been appointed by the President of the United States. So just for historical purposes, I didn't want to get into it, but it's been brought up twice. I think that's an important piece of information that's being left out here. Chief, you just said that your objection is to hire, part of your reason for asking for the increase is to hire 288 new officers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your recruiting classes are full month after month. Is that correct?
They are, yes.
Okay, so you're not having a recruiting issue, right?
We are not.
And really, if you break down the 288, for 288 employees, you have 996 roughly overtime hours, actually over 996,000 actually overtime hours that you paid out last year at a tune of 84 point, let's just round a number, $84.3 million. Just quick math. If you did 288 employees and you times it by 52, which they don't work 52 weeks a year, but just times it by 52, and you give them 50 hours a week, that just comes up to 748,000 hours right there. So if we're not having a recruiting issue, then we have, all your classes are full. We can get there underneath the current budget you have right now, put an additional 288 people on the force. They still are able to get overtime at a tune of 50 hours a week. That's including with the officers you have today. Because your officers you have today, if you take that and you divide it up, they average right at 50 hours a week. 40.8 hours is actually, and I know this is different from protective service guys that are doing protective work versus the uniform. But my point is, if we look at restructuring it, rather than just asking for us to throw more money at it, it's saving the taxpayer dollars. But we can't do it because your recruiting classes are completely full. And we're only able to go through the recruiting classes. You have two places that you put these things, that you put your recruits through, right?
Fletzy and Shelton, Fletzy in Georgia, and then Shelton.
And we're limited on numbers there. Have we looked at having an additional place? Because obviously, like I said, you're not having a recruiting issue because your classes are full. So we can't ever get to the 288 if we're at maximum capacity right now. So what's our option?
One of the findings in a recent training needs assessment that we completed is that the facilities are the choke point for us.
Right, but I mean, we looked at getting a different facility, a different place to send our recruits to.
Yeah, well, we could look at that. I mean, Fletzy has just historically been the federal law enforcement training center is where we train all federal law enforcement officers.
But if they're not able to meet the need, then the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. They're not able to meet the need, and they're not able to recruit fast enough. We have to change because instead you're paying out 996,000 hours of overtime, which is a tune of $84+ million, and you could easily get the other 288 officers in place with the budget you have right now by just cutting down people's overtime, which would also help their quality of life because they're going to be able to be home a little bit more at the same time, still get the overtime at 50 hours a week. And so there's math here that actually works, but we can't do it unless you're willing to change and look outside what we've always done.
Well, the change that I'm dealing with is the growing caseload. I mean, this is not a static workload that doesn't change every year. It is increasing.
The growing caseload, you'd need 288 additional officers, right?
And we're trying to make up for deficits that continue, especially in the
But you can't get there. That's what I'm getting at. If your recruiting classes are 100% full, you'll never be able to get there unless we look at a different place to start putting these recruits through, a different class.
I understand what you're saying, but we are making progress in terms of getting ahead of attrition every year with the 288 people that we're putting through.
By what numbers?
Typically, our attrition numbers, and I can get them to you, are around usually 130, 140 people who leave, so that we're coming out Just estimating, we're coming out at least 100 officers ahead each
So
year.
at that rate, if you kept the current load and your current risk assessment stays, it'd still take you 3 years to get hired up.
I estimate that by the end of FY '27, we would
Well,
be
you
close.
can't do it if your recruiting classes are full and your attrition rate's at 134 and you're bringing in 220, I thought 220 some new recruits every year. You're less than 100 and you need 288. Just simple math there says it's going to take over 3 years. In fact, it's going to take 3.5 years.
Well, we are making progress every year in terms of getting closer to the
But why haven't we looked at
staffing.
getting a new place to send the recruits, is what I'm getting at. Just because this is what, it's like I'm going in circles here. I don't understand why we're not trying to find new places to put the recruits through so we can have a higher amount hired each year. If we need 288 today, then what are we going to need in 3 years from now? You're never going to get caught up with that.
If there is some place that will give us the certificate, that allows us to certify these police officers as federal law enforcement officers, another facility, I'm happy to look at it.
I'm good with it too, and I think we can help you find one. We just need to start looking. I yield.
Mr. Chairman, I would be very happy to work with you, and we just happen to have a federal law enforcement training center in Artesia, New Mexico, that we would love to make sure meets the requirements of the U.S. Capitol Police.
Honestly, let's look at it. I mean,
absolutely.
if we want to take a
I'm not
field
saying,
hearing there,
I'm
let's
not
go.
saying that in jest. They do great work. I know that
If we had one in